Tonight, we're going to look at a part of a video. And there are two testimonies on here, on this video, from guys that have always been heroes of mine. The first one is Will Primos, and most of you, I think, are familiar with Will Primos. Darryl, you probably don't have a clue who Will Primos is. Will is one of the premier game call makers in America, and Will is one of those individuals. He not only makes game calls, but he knows the Lord, has a great walk with Christ, and so he has his testimony on here. And then the second one is David Morris. David Morris, all of you Game and Fish publications, y'all familiar with Georgia Game and Fish, Alabama Game and Fish. Matter of fact, they're in all the states. And David at one time owned all those magazines. And I guarantee you that Dennis can tell you his premier magazine that he just recently sold was North American Whitetail. And so David got big into the deer hunting industry. David went down to Texas and bought him a ranch down there that is right next to Dr. Gary Schwartz. And it's, I can't even think of the name, El Cazador or something or other, I think is the name of the ranch. But anyway, they shoot these huge bucks. And there's one that you'll see on the video that's just absolutely incredible. One they call Heart Attack. Dennis, you probably have seen Heart Attack before. But anyway, it just absolutely heart-stopping deer. But anyway, David, some of you guys, I know that Billy Darty remembers David Morris. David Morris fished right here on this lake. He and Randy Mooring were both guides. They paid their way through college, guide and bass fishermen here on the lake. So these are guys that I look up to. But what I want to do tonight is I want to show you there's a little hunt in there, Debbie, you'll have to get through. But they give their testimonies on here. And then I want to tie it in to the dilemma that every one of us faces in some way or another in life. And we're going to start off in Ecclesiastes in a little while and tell you about the wisest man that ever lived. But he sure didn't act like it, did he? Sometimes Solomon was as far off base as you could possibly get, but he comes to the right conclusion in the end. And, you know, I feel like most people here tonight have found what it takes to find happiness in life. But if there's somebody that's still struggling with that, I hope you know before you leave here tonight. So we're going to start off. Now, I'm going to get my announcements out of the way. Brother Carl, I don't want him to be in trouble with his sweet wife when he gets home. So I want to announce the patriotic concert that is going on at the Fort Gaines United Methodist Church tomorrow evening. Mike English, not the one that's well known with the Gaithers and places like that, but our local police officer, Mike English, who is very talented, very gifted in his own right, is going to do a patriotic concert. That'll start at 6 o'clock. Is there any admission? They going to take a love offer or anything? Just a free concert. Can't beat that. Are there any other announcements that we need to make? All right. If not, I'll see if I can get us started.
An outdoor store. I opened an outdoor
We'll just pick it up in the middle of this interview.
With a friend of mine who's fishing in a
Y'all probably recognize that ugly fellow.
And it was right about the time Bill Jordan started Realtree. And so we started carrying the camo in the store till we were one of his first dealers. And being in close proximity to Columbus, a mutual friend introduced Bill and I, and we started hunting together and hit it off. And within just a few years, he had asked me to come work for him at Realtree to start a TV production department or video production department. didn't have a clue what I was really doing. And still don't today. We've got incredible people that work.
Well, that's the secret to life. If you don't know what you're doing, surround yourself with talented people, and nobody knows.
And let me tell you something. The guys in our production department at Realtree are the best there is. And so I'm fortunate for that. Yeah.
Well, let's move on into the story line of the record book.
Chapter 1. A big buck, by nature, is lazy. What I mean by lazy is he's going to take the least path of resistance most of the time. He'll jump over the shortest strand of fence. He'll cross around the narrowest part of the ridge. He's going to wind up the ridge instead of going straight up it. So when you understand how his mode of travel is, it's fixing to add a whole lot to how successful you're going to be.
Will shoots this, as he calls it, swamp donkey. And this thing looks like a donkey. I mean, it is the fattest pig of a deer. You know, these really big bucks. I mean, you've obviously killed a lot of big deer. In your mind, Will makes a comment there. He says, getting on these things are hard.
Well, especially in the southeast. Yeah. Wow. I mean, these deer in the southeast they're just harder to hunt.
Yeah.
They tend to be more nocturnal. Especially when they respond to just a little pressure.
That's right.
So I admire anybody in the southeast who can consistently take big mature deer. That's right. I'm not talking about the size of the rat.
That's right, old deer.
I'm talking about mature whitetails, right. Whether they're 110 inches or 170 inches. If they're a 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer, they kill a stud.
I think Will dyes his beard, but I'm not sure.
Daddy White. You mentioned last night while we were eating dinner that as a little boy, and I've seen those pictures of you in that cowboy hat.
And I have pictures of me in a cowboy hat. I don't know what it was about cowboy hats, but in fact, my little boy Cole just the other night said, "I think I want to be a cowboy when I grow up, Daddy, but I can't find any bad guys."
but I just show him a bunch of I see that picture of you in a cowboy hat, and I can relate to that memory because you told me last night that it wasn't about sports for you, school and the way kids can be and stuff. It seemed to me like hunting for you, hunting and fishing was a way that you could, that was your domain.
Yeah, I guess when I was young, as I grew up, I was very insecure, and I mean, so many children today are bullied, and there's a lot of peer pressure. There's a lot of effort to fit in, and I didn't feel like I fit in, and I was teased, and so I said, heck with it. And I didn't want to be a part of organized sports. I played baseball, played minor league. I was a catcher, loved it. But I decided I'm going fishing and I'm going hunt. And I'd take my BB gun, I'd take my pellet gun, and later on my 22, and later on my daddy's 16 gauge, and and that's where I found a love of the outdoors.
Now it's my turn to hunt in Mississippi with Johnny St. Clair running the camera.
All right. Good and cold. Got a little ice on the buggy this morning. It's supposed to warm up here for long. We worked real hard trying to figure out exactly where to put the stand. There's a couple of drainage ditches that fork in here, and the deer walk in these drainage ditches and going back into these briar thickets. So maybe we'll get lucky. Let's go.
It looks like luck is with us this morning. The sun is starting to break through the trees, so we're finally able to see. Right on time, Johnny spotted this nice drop-tine buck. And let me tell you, the hunter is not the only one that can get buck fever. I'm on the same tree as Johnny, and I have 2 trees in between me and this drop-tine buck. I'm just waiting for the right moment. This buck keeps looking back. So I shift my eyes to see what has this buck's attention. And it is definitely the boss of this little group. Now all attention shifts to be ready for this mature 8.
So Daddy worked, and he worked a lot, and he worked hard. We were raised and born into the restaurant business. His father, my grandfather, Angelo Primos, came over from Greece when he was 8 years old, landed in New Orleans with his mother and 4 siblings, and learned how to bus tables and learned how to wash dishes, and that's all he knew, not educated. And then he learned the restaurant business from being a laborer. And developed the restaurants, and they became very successful. There were 5 of them in the Jackson, Mississippi area. All my uncles and my daddy worked in the restaurant business. And I grew up in that.
Speaking of restaurants, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I mean, a lot of people, not a ton of people, but it's not uncommon, I would say, that people follow in their family business, especially if they own a small business. You see that a lot.
Yeah.
But what, there was somewhere you flipped a switch,
Well,
and didn't go to restaurants.
you know, a lot of my family, there was a lot of nepotism. And, you didn't get necessarily paid for how hard you worked. You got paid because of your age or where you came up. You had somebody else that wasn't doing much or whatever.
Seniority meant something different in that world, didn't
It did. and I don't know, I guess I was built different. I wanted to set things up and watch them and set up an organization. I'm extremely organized. And I wanted to see things work on their own. I started making turkey calls as just a hobby. And then in '76 sold my first one.
What was it? What kind of call?
Turkey call.
I know, I mean, what kind of call was it? Was it like
A mouth call.
A mouth call.
Yeah. And I had a guy encourage me, as a friend of an older gentleman who's gone to his reward. But his name was Buck Dearman, and he encouraged me. He said, "Man, you need to make these. I love them." So I made a bunch. I went to a show and sold out over $1,000 worth at the show. I'm having a mere business idea. So I kept doing that, and I kept adding to the line and kept doing it. And later hired my cousin Jimmy Primos, who's 5 years older than me. He's done a wonderful job, great guy. And we just kept building the business. So, and then in 1988, I decided I need to get out of the restaurant business. It's very difficult. You're in the family business. You're part owner.
Roots there.
Yeah, and part owner. And so I went to my daddy and told him. My daddy's always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. What a wonderful message to say, I will support you, I'm behind you. Even though he's lived his whole life to turn the business over and do that, my daddy, most giving, loving, he is the most Christ-like person I know. Because he loves unconditionally. Unbelievable.
One thing to say about your dad.
One unbelievable man. And so he said, okay. And I went, and at that time I kind of had a change in life. I'd gone through a divorce. Wasn't raised believing in that, and that was a difficult time. Met my wife, married. Been married going on 21 years this June. And dadgummit, man, we've just been a great team, and she supported me. In 10 years I didn't draw a salary, and we worked and traveled, and I was gone a lot, and I'd get off that plane and she'd say, what can I do to get you on the next trip? She was just a great supporter.
My God.
She even worked for me running the marketing department at one time. That wasn't a good decision. We're too much alike.
You get slide back in that nepotism thing. If that old habits die hard.
Yeah, they do. I'm now 57. I feel like I'm 18 because it's like the first time I ever went. You know what I like? I like a boat that just has shot air. And I want to take a minute just to climb down, be by myself, and go find them deer. Is that all right with you, Johnny?
Yes, sir.
Bye. He went further than I thought he would. From my angle, it looked like it was perfect. He was 25 yards. I shot him at 25 yards. Unless he ducked a little bit, but I don't think he did. Maybe not.
How far do you go?
All total, probably 200. Let's go find him. I should have to say, let's go show him to you.
Always go down the hill.
I like that.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Donkey. That's where he lives. In the swamp.
That's where he died too.
That's the swamp donkey right there. Man on gnarly 8 point.
Wow.
These things are hard to get on. I'm proud of it, Mr. Johnny.
Me too.
Mighty proud.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too, man. When that glass, absolutely fantastic.
But from a killing perspective, why'd you pick that spot and what forced you to do that?
Well, Johnny, who
I'll
manages the
share the
property
wall.
where we're hunting, Johnny St. Clair, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, and we had noticed and seen how this was an odd pinch point. In the Delta, you don't have high ridges and ravines and things that force them to walk a certain way. You got thickets, and you got vine thickets, and you got treetops, and you've got roads, and you've got river barriers or waterway barriers. And this is an odd little place. There's a ditch there, and Johnny and I went in there and looked at it and thought about it, and we hung a stand there, and then went back and checked on it, and there were more tracks coming through there. So we realized the deer were coming here, and you had to hunt it on the south wind, and you had to hunt it or you had to get there an hour, 45 minutes to an hour before it got light, because the deer were staging up in these thickets
Coming through.
back in the bedding area. But I'll tell you what, the real highlight of that day was that I got to go with Johnny that afternoon. We killed that deer, had a great time, figured that out. We're so proud of ourselves, because it's hard to do. It ain't easy to trick these big old swamp donkeys.
That's right.
And that afternoon, we went to a food plot area, and it was muzzleloader season, and in Mississippi, you could use a single shot 45-7.
Yep, that's right.
And so I was videoing Johnny, and one of the
That's
big,
when he killed that big eight.
yeah, one of those big ones walked out, and I'm telling you what,
This is stuff that's
when I looked at it, Johnny, the gun sitting there, he's frozen. He ain't even moving. What is he doing? He better be getting ready. He claims that I was whispering to him, "You can't shoot him, you can't shoot him." I believe by faith, and I believe in the grace of God. And somewhere along the way, for me, I had to decide if I believe. I mean, what does it mean? You know, and I had to believe by faith in something that I wasn't there when Jesus was crucified. I wasn't there when he was risen from the dead. But Christianity is the only religion that I know of where somebody was raised from the dead.
That's right.
And came back.
That's the claim. That's the exclusive claim.
And so I had to decide whether I believed or not. To know that God gave me the chance to believe, and I accepted him by faith, and then by grace he forgives me, and I get to go through life, and I always have a check and balance. God doesn't leave me. He doesn't leave me when I'm at work. He doesn't leave me when I'm counseling an employee. He doesn't leave me when I'm driving down the road. And when I stray from that, and I begin to think it's just me doing it, that's my check. And I get to come back, and that's that keeps the forward motion going.
I was thinking about this. If somebody buried the record book project in a metal box, and some old boy on the Delta one day found it, 100 years from now, it'll be long since gone on to Jesus. And who knows if the Primos industry will be around. If Jesus hadn't come by then, if people are still on this earth, and even if Primos, the industry, is here or not, and they watched Record Book, and they had no idea who you were, no idea, this man Will Primos, and you could say something to that man about the truth about Will Primos. He's never met you, never heard of you. What would you want him to say? Or what would you want him to hear?
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer, but I think it comes to mind for me that one day I said, God, I want a chance to make a difference. Show me the way.
Jason, most people don't realize what goes into producing quality whitetails at a place like David's Ranch in South Texas.
That's right.
And you had a chance to hunt down there.
Man, well, we really were blessed in the respect that we didn't expect to hunt. And a guy dropped out, but a hunt canceled, so we got the spot. But you know, David down there, David Marsh brought up a great point. And he just put it in different language and made me think about it differently. He said, you know, so many people, when they think about killing trophy whitetails, they think about killing the big whitetails. He said what they don't realize is how critical management is in taking bucks out. Like this buck that you're fixing to watch with me, he's a stud. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I mean, they call that a magic buck. I'm going, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, but that's how they get there. And it's so critical to manage those. And he told me some scientific, the way they do the math. Mm-hmm. It's amazing on how they target which bucks are managed and which aren't.
Well, David is a pioneer when it comes to managing deer in any parts of the country. So what they've done in South Texas by providing year-round food plots is absolutely incredible and was unheard of when they started.
And then where they're doing it at.
That's what I'm saying. In South Texas,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
You can't have a DVD called The Record Book without having some footage of some really big whitetails. And when you think of really big whitetails, you think of South Texas, and especially a place called Tecomate.
Our original plan to go to Tecomate was really to go just to film and get footage and to hang out with David Morris and get his story.
Alright, man, we just got to Tecomate. We'll show you our cook. I cook Benny. This is the main man. This is Benny. He's the cook. Benny, he already sitting at the table, son. He's ready, baby. Hey, when you walk in Tecomate, let me say something. This right here. Look at that, Alan Curley. Look at that. Look at that big dog.
One of my customers, Chuck Larson and Steve Owen and I were standing over a deer, and Chip Gary, another friend of mine, was standing over a deer that I had taken on Thanksgiving Day, a big 10-pointer there in Georgia. And one of us, we never did know which one of us, said, you know, Georgia's a great hunting and fishing state. There needs to be a magazine about hunting and fishing in Georgia. And from that, we started Game and Fish Publications, which began with Georgia Sportsman and eventually spread to all 48 states with state and regional magazines.
Like the Tennessee Sportsman?
That's right.
Okay.
Those are all ours. And then in 1976, we started, in 1982, we started North American Whitetail Magazine. 1976, we started Game and Fish, and then in 1982, we started North American Whitetail. I went to the Dixie Deer Classic in North Carolina, and I said, you know, there are a bunch of deer nuts here that are just like we are, and I said, I think there's a market for a deer magazine. And we started North American Whitetail that next year. And,
That didn't amount to much.
no, it didn't amount to much. And we were blessed with Game and Fish Publications. It was a great business for us for a lot of years. And so I met Dr. Schwartz. He and I became fast friends. I realized this guy is an incredible pioneer in whitetail management nutrition. And so we started hunting together and sharing ideas and sharing experiences, became friends. And I saw what he was doing. I said, hey, Gary, my dream has always been to have a ranch in South Texas. Can you help me find one? He helped me find one next door to him. I eventually bought out Cazador Ranch. But in the meantime, Gary was being driven crazy by the phone calls he was getting about what he was doing. What are you doing? He couldn't even be an oral surgeon for all the phone calls he's getting about deer management. I had, in the meantime, sold North American Whitetail to Prime Media, and I had kind of semi-retired, but we had begun to release information on our findings on Fort Perry about nutritional management and the incredible results we were getting. And I was getting calls, and Gary and I sat right here at Tecumseh Ranch, and we said, you know, we ought to get together and take Tecumseh seed. Gary had created a small localized seed company that supplied the South Texas area with warm season lagoons. I said, we should get together, take that national, and spread the message for the primary purpose of getting this information out.
I've been in the Army for going on 22 years. I was wounded fighting in Afghanistan.
Greg Stubbe is the personification of all that is great about America. We had the privilege this week of kind of giving back just a little bit, show our appreciation for our soldiers, our people that give everything for this country. In this case, it was with Greg Stubbe, a Green Beret, decorated Green Beret, severely injured in Afghanistan. His wife Donna came down with her little son Gregory, and Jeff, we had a great hunt, and it was a privilege for me to be a part of it.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Well, I'm very honored to be here, where I know all my friends want to be. These whitetail are the biggest things I've seen on the planet, it feels like. I'm the luckiest guy to get to be here to hunt them.
Greg was involved in Operation Medusa in Afghanistan, which resulted in one of the largest battles ever in that war. It was a 5-day battle, constant fighting. Greg was right in the middle of it. He ultimately was very seriously injured by an IED.
The blast went through diesel fuel cans and rockets that were strapped to the side of the vehicle. And of course, it lit me on fire and blew my right leg nearly off and sent some shrapnel through my body.
Sergeant Stubbe earned the Bronze Star and Purple Heart for his heroic actions in Operation Medusa as he continued his mission even after his devastating injuries, returning fire on the enemy and guiding his fellow Special Forces soldiers through his own medical care. Sergeant Greg Stubbe is a true American hero.
To have him here and to share our place here on El Cazador is a wonderful privilege for Debbie and I and my whole family. I'm just hoping we can put him on a big whitetail. It was one of those mornings where there was a cold front coming in and it was very blustery. The wind was blowing.
Look, that's a great young buck. That is a great young buck. That deer is a 4.5-year-old, Brad. In 2 more years, that deer will be a buck deer. He will be a buck deer in 2 more years. There's an old buck coming in right here.
Gunshot.
Old buck. That's a big old buck. Yeah, that's an old deer right there. I mean, that thing is a brute. Oh, there's another little guy coming in, yeah. Little guy. That deer, he's probably 200 now, but I guarantee you back before the rut, he's probably lost 50 pounds. That was a 250-pound deer. Greg, we're going to take that deer.
When David said that I could shoot that buck if I wanted to, I just couldn't believe it. It took me a second to realize the possibility.
Old to me equates to trophy. That is an old buck. That's a post-prime buck. That deer is probably 8 or 9 or 10 years old. That is a very, very old buck.
So you're looking at a deer that survived among the biggest and the strongest bucks you can imagine. That's a warrior deer, and that's something I can empathize with. So I had a great deal of respect for the animal, and I just couldn't believe that it would be my opportunity to harvest him before his decline.
he got the shot. It's not that big.
I knew he had him a great buck. Buck ran. We could see within 30 yards he was going down, and the celebration began. Greg had taken a great buck. I mean, this thing was a fantastic old buck. Look at the scars on him. Look at this. This old buck. Look at the fighting scars here.
I couldn't believe that that was a buck that I'd harvested. I shot a buck of Tecumseh.
Thank you for being willing to go over there and fight to defend our freedom so I can do this. And thousands and millions of other people across the country can. Thank you.
Great to be home. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you. Let's get this deer back to the house and show Donna.
I want to show Donna.
So Greg, let me show you why we plant a combination of Tecumseh Monster Mix and Max-Attract here. You see, the Monster Mix is mostly legumes. And we like to have the legumes available for the deer during the early spring when they first start their antler growth. So for us, this is not just an attractant plot, which Max-Attract is incredible. It has these cereal grains in it as well as legumes, but Monster Mix is all legumes. And look at how many clovers and medics. There's all kind of legumes here. This is a nutritional plot, providing high energy, keeping their body weights up during the winter, but during the spring, it's that transitional protein source leading to the lab plot. And one of the real keys is be sure your soil is right. That includes the seed bed, but we also use Delta Ag soil conditioner. That Delta Ag encourages a good microbial population that encourages good soil growth, good plant growth, good soil. And good soil, in the end, that's the foundation that your food plot is built on.
What are the top few criteria that every guy needs to know? If he doesn't know a thing about it, what would you tell that guy?
Well, I would tell him this. No matter what size land base he has, he can do something to improve his hunting situation. The quality of his resource, the quality of his land base, the quality of his neighbors, the size of his land, the quality of his soil, the type of habitat, all come into how much he can actually improve his hunting situation, or in other words, improve his deer herd. But everybody can do something. And it may be nothing more than a good, solid attraction food plot that has helped to draw deer in from surrounding properties to give you a little bit of an edge. Or it could be a full-blown nutritional program where you've got enough acreage and enough food plots that you're actually growing more and bigger deer by giving them better food. So it's almost like a buffet. You walk up to a buffet and you can have a dessert or you can have a full 7-course meal that includes dessert. And how much land you have and what type of land you have depends on how much of that buffet you need to partake of and how much is feasible.
The first evening that we hunted, it was just what we had imagined. Big deer everywhere.
The first evening, in the first 30 minutes, speechless.
There's a bush sticking out that he's...
Oh my God.
Oh,
Make sure you record. He's a monster. Good gosh almighty. That is an absolute... Look at the size of that deer.
like, hey dude, you're going the wrong way.
Gosh, I've never seen nothing like that in my life. That's unspeakable.
We had about a 3-day hunt, and we kept getting close. There was a big 80 almost could have shot, just had to meet near the way. There was a big 9 the first night, just a little bit too far out for the camera, not for the gun. We kept getting closer and getting closer. It probably sounds a little cliche, but you know what? The truth was, it was the last evening. There was a big 10 we've been watching. He was just a young buck that was going to be a stud. And pretty soon, he started acting really weird. And I felt like there may be a buck coming through that South Texas scrub brush.
When this 10-pointer showed up, Jason thought the deer was probably going to be a little too big to be a management buck, but somehow I just knew that deer was going to be a shooter buck.
Oh.
by Jason's reaction that he expected that deer to drop.
You're a hunter, and you know the feeling. I mean, I was sick at my stomach. I honestly thought I was going to absolutely lose all my supper.
But somehow I just knew in my bones that deer was dead.
We go back to the lodge, and we all gather around, and I'm going to tell you what, praise God for Final Cut Pro.
Bullet right there.
Because I put the footage in there, and we got to looking, and I actually could see that bullet. You know, one of the coolest displays of class I think I've ever seen. Every single guy at Tecumseh suited up quietly. They never made a big deal of it. I just saw them put on their gear, and every one of those guys went out to that Sendero. They were going to find that deer. You know, it doesn't always end like that. Most of the time, if you're not seeing what you need to be seeing, it's going to be a bad night. But in this case, man, the sovereignty buck, he came through, and God blessed us. It was, I'll never forget hearing Mark, one of the Tecumseh guides, scream out, "Got a dead deer over here."
But you know, as much as I love this, it's not the most important thing in our life. It's easy to be consumed by these big deer if you let it.
Very easy. I can see where it would capture a man's heart and eyes and dream.
It is, but you know.
I ain't stopped thinking about that deer.
I know. Well, you have to constantly kind of have an attitude readjustment, but you know, the most important thing to me is my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And you know, I go back to my early years. I always knew that Jesus was the Son of God. I always had that intellectual knowledge. I always knew that He was calling me. And I kept saying, God, I'm going to catch up with you later. I got things to do, and you're going to print my style. But I'll catch up with you later. We'll get all squared away. Let me hunt and fish around the world. Let me do all the things I want to do. And then maybe you get squared away before I die. That's right. Exactly. I got something to do. I'll catch up with you later. But I know you're calling, but I'll catch you later. And I kept putting God off. I kept putting Him off. And then in 1983, one December morning, right before Christmas, I walked down to my trophy room in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had a trophy room full of stuff. I had Cape Buffalo, and I had lions, and I had stuff. I shot things in Africa I didn't even know what they were. You turn a redneck over there on Monday. I mean, never seen nothing like it. And I had it all. I was a bass guy. I'd caught big fish. I'd gone all over the world hunting. I'd shot grizzly bears and Kodiaks. And I walked down to my trophy room, and I looked up at that wall, and I stood in that trophy room on Sunday morning. I'll never forget it. My wife had been hammering on me and wanted me to go to church with him. I stood in that trophy room, and I looked at this, and I thought to myself, Ecclesiastes, is this all there is? And I do too. It's one of my favorite because I so relate to it.
Solomon's asking the hard question.
He's asking the hard question.
He's built the land, he's built the stuff, and he said, is there more to this?
It's got to be. All is vanity. And I looked and I said, is this all there is? It's got to be more to life than just this. And I knew what was missing. I knew. And as I stood there that morning, not having gotten to that point from hardship, I have to admit, I had gotten that point by God letting me have my way and realizing my way was a dead end. And I stood there that morning and I said, God, whatever you want from me, I give you. And I fell on my knees that morning and gave my life to Jesus Christ. And I gave it up. I fully expected to have to be a missionary to Bolivia or somewhere. I thought all my hunting and fishing is gone, it's over, I'm done. And, I enjoyed it while...
If it's of the Lord, it's got to be bad.
It's got to be bad. It's got to be bad. And I said, whatever you want from me, I give you. And lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, He expanded my horizons beyond anything I ever imagined.
Chapter 2, the vulnerability of a big buck. When you up,
I know that some of y'all can sit there. Well, I know Clyde would sit there and watch that all day. There's a big deer on there, but we got to go there tonight. So they mentioned Solomon, Ecclesiastes, and I want to begin by reading Solomon's words as he looks back over his life and all of his accomplishments. He says in the 2nd chapter of Ecclesiastes, beginning in verse 4, I made my works great. I built myself houses and planted myself vineyards. I made myself gardens and orchards, and I planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made myself water pools from which to water the growing trees of the grove. I acquired male and female servants and had servants born in my house. Yes, I had greater possessions of herds and flocks than all who were in Jerusalem before me. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the special treasures of kings and of the provinces. I acquired male and female singers, the delights of the Son of Men, and musical instruments of all kinds. So I became great and excelled more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my reward for all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled. And indeed, all was vanity, and a grasping for the wind. There was no profit under the sun. You know, Solomon had it all. He accomplished everything that a man could possibly want to do. I mean, he had really reached the heights and exceeded them that any man possibly could dream of. And yet, he stood there one day and he looked all over his kingdom and he felt a great emptiness. Something was missing. Everything that he thought would bring him the fulfillment that he wanted in life, it just didn't do it. And it's that way with men and women all over the world today. I mean, without exception, every person is searching for something, because every one of us wants our life to matter for something. One of the things that is hardest for any man to swallow in life is that he would come to the end of his life and he would feel insignificant, that he hasn't accomplished anything with his life. There are a lot of people that come to the end of life and they have put money in bank accounts, they've got cars in the carport, they have done everything that a man could possibly want, and yet they're as empty as the deepest well you can find. I think about Solomon a lot, because I didn't have all of the money and the prestige, but I remember when I, like David Morris, stood and looked at the things that I had accomplished one day, and I was as empty as could possibly be. There was something terribly wrong with my life. I had accomplished the things that I thought I wanted to accomplish, and yet I was looking for fulfillment in the acquisition of temporal things and accomplishments that only matter for this earth. And there was just an emptiness. I don't know how to explain it. I just was so depressed that I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know. I said, if that's all there is to life, then what's the reason for even being here? Why don't why don't I just go ahead and end my life? There's really no purpose, no reason for being. You know, I think every typical male in this country starts off their life looking for these same things. I mean, they really believe that by the accumulation of a good career, of enjoying all the pleasures that life has to bring, by putting possessions into acquiring them for yourself, that through all of these things that somehow they're going to matter beyond the moment. But you know, every time you get something new in life, it only matters to you for a little while. And then you're on to the next thing. Every time you kill a big deer, guys or ladies, every time you kill a big deer, it only matters for just a moment, because the next season it's almost like you didn't kill that one last year. You know, it only matters for just a moment. There's something missing. And what I want to talk to you about tonight for just a few minutes is having a transcendent cause in your life. If you don't come to the place where you find a transcendent cause for life, you're not going to ever achieve happiness. I believe it was Goethe that said that the happiest man is the one who learns to combine the ending of his life with the beginning. In other words, we need to always be thinking about what our life is going to look like when we come to the end of it. And you know, one of the saddest things is that so many people will get to the end of this life and they'll put them in the ground and they'll be forgotten. Their life will not have mattered for anything. They've not done anything that's going to affect the life of another generation. They've not done anything for eternity. I did a funeral one time. The funeral home called me, and there was a vagrant that had died there in New Fallen. They said, you know, we're just going to provide basically a cardboard coffin for this old boy, and we just need somebody to say a few words over him. And I met him at the cemetery. I helped him get the coffin out of the back of the funeral car. We put it in the ground, and I stood there with the guy that dug the grave and the funeral home director, and I said some words over the man. Nobody knew anything about him. Nobody had any history on him. We don't know what he accomplished in his life. And you know, that's really a sad thing. Now, I think everybody goes through the same process in life because there's a conventional vision of what it is to be successful in life, to achieve something, whether you be a man or a woman. And it really begins, first of all, step one, especially with manhood, and to some degree with ladies as well. But a man especially begins to believe, first of all, that he's a man if he has a good position in life. Now that position could be his what he does for a living. It could be the success that he's achieved in life. But everybody starts out trying to achieve some position. And don't we equate that? I mean, somebody comes up to you and they ask you, what's the first thing they ask you? What do you do for a living? They want to know what you do. And, you know, whether you're an electrician or whether you're a banker, they want to know what you do for a living. Because we equate position so much with success in life or even with manhood or being a woman. And so people start out from the earliest age wanting to have a good position in life. And then the second stage of conventional manhood is that credibility comes from winning. Credibility comes from success. In other words, I can't have a good name unless I'm successful in life, unless I win. And you find from a very early age, young kids that want to get involved in athletics, young kids that, you know, like I did, I hunted and fished, and I wanted to kill more deer than the other guys in my class. I wanted to catch a bigger fish than they did because I wanted to establish myself. And they did too. And by being the best athlete or by catching the biggest fish or whatever it was, even from a young age, you begin to try to establish your credibility by your success. Then the third stage that people go through is that success is the goal, but it's often at great expense. In other words, you want to make a career for your life. You want to be successful. And so here we go. We start doing everything we can to reach this goal of making a living, making a name for ourselves. But in the process, we forget about the things that are really important in life. We might destroy a marriage in the process. We might alienate our kids in the process. We might lose great friends in the process. But hey, we're successful. We're making a name for ourselves. And there's a string of casualties that are left behind us because we put our eyes on our career and we didn't have a transcendent cause. There was something truly missing from our life. Then there's a fourth stage in that conventional wisdom, and that is that power commands attention and respect. You know, when you get to the top of the mountain in your career, when you become successful in whatever you do, there's a certain amount of power in the credibility that you have. People look to you for answers. People look to you in that particular field in which you're in. Because you have achieved a name for yourself, That's where you begin to see your credibility. And there's some power in that. Y'all know what the danger of power is, don't you? I mean, pride can easily cause us to get so full of ourselves that, God's going to have to kick our feet out from under us at some time. And there are a lot of people in this world that are caught up in this idea that it's all about building a name. It's all about establishing my credibility. Then finally, they find the success that they've always been looking for, but they don't have no satisfaction in it. They have the success that they've always wanted, like Solomon. Hey, Solomon had everything he could possibly want, but he didn't have any satisfaction in life. He called it all vanity. He said, just like chasing after the wind, you can't catch the wind. Solomon said, you can't find fulfillment in life by trying to find it in success in this world. What's the problem? There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful in life. There's nothing wrong with us wanting to achieve, to be the best that we can in life. But the problem is that if that's all that you're trying to do, that is certainly incomplete. There's something that is always going to be missing from your life, and you will reach the end of your life, and there will be that emptiness. There will be the fact that your life was never complete. And so what is this thing that's missing from our life? What is it that is going to make us be fulfilled? Well, it is the thing that is called a transcendent cause. A transcendent cause. You say, Jeff, what in the world is a transcendent cause? What's that video about the Grace Doobie or whatever his name was, the Green Beret, and he went over and he fought for his country in Afghanistan, severely wounded. I think about all those guys that go over there. Transcendent cause is the thing that'll make a soldier throw himself on top of a grenade to save his comrades. A transcendent cause is what made all of those young men on September the 11th go and sign their name on the dotted line and go over to a foreign country to fight for their land. A transcendent cause is what would make you stand in the way of a gunman tonight to rescue anybody else in this place. A transcendent cause is the very thing that adds meaning and fulfillment to your life and mine. So what is a transcendent cause? Well, there are basically three things that make up a transcendent cause. Number one, it's always going to be something truly heroic. All of us guys, from the time we're young, even as we grow into adulthood and even into old age, we want to do something truly heroic with our lives. We want to make a difference. We want to play the hero throughout our lives, and whether it be taking care of our wife, taking care of our family, whatever it is, we want to do something that is truly heroic in life. But also, the second thing about a transcendent cause is that it is something that is truly timeless. It's timeless. It's going to be something that is remembered beyond today. It's going to be something that people will talk about, and that is going to be remembered not only in the annals of history of this life, but things that are going to make a difference for eternity. That's what a transcendent cause is. First of all, it's truly heroic. Secondly, it's timeless. But the third thing about it is that this thing is supremely meaningful. It is supremely meaningful. It not only affects your life, it affects everybody around you. It's going to be something that people will share with one another. And that's what a transcendent cause is. And so you think about it. You try to come up with something that you could do in life. And a lot of people say, well, my transcendent cause is to raise my children. Well, that's a good cause, but what happens when your children either turn from the way that you tried to raise them, or when they're gone out the door? I see a lot of ladies that they bury their transcendent cause, they make their transcendent cause raising their children. Well, what happens when the children leave the nest? They go off the deep end and they leave everything that's ever mattered to them. That's when your transcendent cause is not the right transcendent cause. And people all the time are looking for that transcendent cause, and yet they're not finding the right one. I want to submit to you tonight that there is only one transcendent cause that will meet the criteria in life. Something truly heroic. You know, only Jesus Christ comes to my mind. You know, Jesus said, I'm going to call you to a transcendent cause. I'm going to ask you to lay down your life. I'm going to ask you to deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me. He said, I'm going to Calvary. I'm going to die for the sins of sinners like you. I'm going to face the agony, the anguish of having to suffer for sin. I'm even going to hang on the cross, suspended between heaven and earth, as if fit for neither one. And I'm going to bear the sin of the world upon my shoulders. I'm going to take the brunt of God's punishment for sin. And I want you to follow me. And to follow Jesus does not mean that we're on easy street, does it? Matter of fact, He calls us to a life of sacrifice. It's not always easy, is it? No, not always easy. And sometimes it means that you have to go through the deep waters of life. Sometimes it means that you go through the valley. But when you do it and you uphold our Savior, then it's something truly heroic. It's something that matters for eternity. But not only, friends, is it something that is truly heroic, but it's also timeless. You say, I want to do something with my life, and I believe you do too, that's going to matter beyond this life. Something that's going to matter for eternity. And in Jesus Christ, truly timeless, the Bible says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And to have Him as my Lord and Savior means that I'm going to live for eternity. I'm going to live for eternity. And look, the people that I lead to Christ in this lifetime, they're going to live for eternity. And the things that I do for the kingdom of God are going to matter. All of the things that I've acquired in my life, they're going to pass away. They're not timeless. Those things will be eaten up by moth and rust. They'll be destroyed. But hey, the things that we do for eternity are going to be timeless. Amen? But it's also, Jesus Christ is supremely meaningful. He's supremely meaningful. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus did not say, I am one way among many. Jesus did not say that I am one form of truth among a lot of others. He didn't say that I am a way of life because there's a lot to choose from. No, He used the definite article. He said, I am the way, the truth, the life. And no man comes to the Father but through me. Pretty neat stuff. That's what you call a transcendent cause. And the only transcendent cause that a man, a woman, a boy, or girl can take up that is going to make a difference in their life is by making Jesus Christ your transcendent cause. Solomon looked at all that stuff that he had around him. He said, it's not meaningful. It's chasing after the wind. All this stuff that I've done in my life does not matter. But listen to what the old boy says in chapter 12. Chapter 12, verse 1, he says, remember now your Creator in the days of your youth,